Now, there's been a fair amount of research going on that I think is applicable to this discussion. And I've been kind of, picking at it a little bit already. I wanted to review the Steven Pinker piece, because one of the things they're finding is that there are structures, psychological structures, in human beings that are particular to ethics and morality. All right? So he says the starting point for appreciating that there is a distinctive part of our psychology for morality is seeing how moral judgments differ from other kinds of opinions we have on how people ought to behave. Moralization is a psychological state that can be turned on and off like a switch. And when it's on, a distinctive mindset commandeers our thinking. Now, think about this. When people are under a sense of threat, they generally respond in one of three ways. You know about this already, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. Right? And it's not just people that do this. Animals do this too. All right? So in other words, there's a basic structure that is in place in most organisms to respond to threats and danger. I would like you to think about what Pinker's saying about the moralization switch as being of that nature. Right? This isn't something that you get to choose whether the switch pops or not very often. It's going to happen to you. All right? And when it happens, what are likely to be the results? Well, the first hallmark of moralization is that the rules it invokes are felt to be universal. All right? So you get this idea that you've seen something that is wrong, and it's obvious to you that everybody would see this as wrong, right? So in other words, you get that sense of real high-handedness, probably. And the other hallmark is that people feel that those who commit immoral acts deserve to be punished. Right? Not only is it allowable to inflict pain on a person who has broken a moral rule, it's wrong not to. It's wrong to let them get away with it. Very important aspect here. When the moralization switch pops, the two things that are likely to happen is you're imagining that you have tapped into something that is universal, that everybody should see it the same way. And second of all, if you've identified someone who is transgressed from your perspective, some kind of punishment is supposed to happen at that point. Right? You can't let people get away with it because they've broken something universal. Right? Very powerful. The next piece has to do with Mr. Haidt. Actually, I've been saying it Haidt, but it's Haidt, I understand now. And you may recall last month I was talking about the five foundations of morality. And those foundations, again, are harm, fairness, purity, thank you. Harm, fairness, purity, authority, and community. Thank you. You guys are good. I'm really good. It's just my son is very happy in his job, and he's so happy in the morning that he goes off singing hi-ho. What could be better than that? And I had that same feeling this morning, and you just really endorsed that. Thank you so much. All right, so you get these five foundations. What Haidt is saying is that these five ways of looking at things are probably also somehow an organic part of us. In other words, they stem from more of a genetic predisposition to understand and perceive things along these categories. Right? In other words, if you see the same thing over and over and over, everybody uses these somehow or other. They may put different weights on different aspects of it, but they tend to see these same things over and over and over again. So I think it's probably fair to say that this is something that has evolved as a genetic aspect of the human organism, and that it is therefore universal in that sense. Everybody gets these categories to work with when they're working in a human culture. The other aspect of it is, though, when you see these differences, you have to realize that human beings have an extra something that allows them to process some of these things that you might consider innate. All right, so even though we may have these as the basic structures for seeing things, we then, once we see it that way, have the opportunity to reflect on it. All right, so what Haidt is saying is we have two basic systems that we use in morality. The first is one of an intuitive system, and that's using those five categories to start with. That's how we see something and experience it. The second system is a sense of using our reason to take a look at our experience. right? Looking back on our experience and trying to figure out. Now, the result of this is that when you present people with ethical situations and ask them to choose, what you do find is people respond intuitively. Right? In other words, people make their judgment based on their intuition about what's right. Right? There's that switch again. And then, when asked to explain why, they turn on the reason jets and try to figure out, well, why did I think that was the right way to go? Right? So we have these two systems, and they're in place. But the first one is an automatic system that we don't have much say about, right? Because it's a reflection of feelings that just emerge from us in an intuitive sort of way when faced with a situation, right? Think, fight, flight, freeze. And then, only then, do we get an opportunity to try to figure out, well, what am I to do about this that I just found? Right? And generally what people tend to do about it is go into that second mode, which is, okay, somebody's got to get punished for this. Right? In other words, there is a sense of, now I have to explain to myself why this is wrong, and I have to figure out what's supposed to happen because these wrongdoings might have occurred. Right? Everyone with me so far in terms of how this is laying out? And you understand why this is problematic, right? You're trying to walk alongside your brother, and your brother says something incredibly stupid, right? Your intuition is popping off. You're saying, what? You gotta be kidding me. And you're ready. You're ready to jump down his throat with a vengeance. I hope so, right? I mean, we're not like cowards here, right? We have our sense of moral strength and effort. But jumping down someone's throat generally has its downside. Oftentimes it does, anyway. Though so does being quiet. When I was looking for this, I thought I should probably look for quotes on brotherly love. And the first surprising thing was when I Googled brotherly love and quote, I came up with very few hits. Kind of scary when you think about it. And the one that I did come up with was this from Frank Moore Colby. Persecution was at least a sign of personal interest. Tolerance is composed of 9 parts apathy and 1 part brotherly love. Right? So there is a quality of kind of, living light, when you go with the brotherly love thing that somehow is sinking on through all this. Anyway, but let's not get off track. All right. So where was I? So look, trying to figure out then, how are we to behave? How are we to behave when faced with these powerful intuitions and secondary efforts to reason them out is a real challenge. When was this? Last year I was talking about John Dewey, and in reading about John Dewey, I came across this thing, an argument that he had with Jane Addams. People may remember Jane Addams was the founder of Hull House, very big in the settlement house movement in Chicago, a really interesting person, and a lifelong pacifist. And Dewey was kind of an in-and-out pacifist. He kind of went through it, and every so often he backed away from it, and then he regret that and moved back to it, that sort of thing. Anyway, but he and Dewey got into an argument. And this is what the author of the book, The Metaphysical Club, Louis Manan, has to say about it. It was an argument about argument. Addams said she believed that antagonism was always unnecessary. It never arose from real objective differences, she told Dewey, but from a person mixing in his own personal reactions, the extra emphasis he gave the truth, the enjoyment he took in doing a thing because it was unpalatable to others, or the feeling that one must show his own colors. Antagonism was always unnecessary. Now that's kind of an interesting line, isn't it? They had a big fight about this because Dewey couldn't really get there. But I think by the time he got home, he got it. And he ultimately came to think that she was right. Antagonism is never necessary. Is it really necessary for people to lash out at others? It's a good question.